Boom, boom. I'm live. Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Looking very dark on the screen. I hope that's not too bad there. There we go. Right, and welcome to Sloan's Science Fiction Station, folks. I got a wee bit bored tonight and just thought I'd pop online for a chat. So if there's anybody out there in the ether, as they say hello and give us any wee comments, etc. So I'm probably on my own for a moment here because I haven't really announced this. It's just a wee thing popping on. But yeah, I had sort of mentioned that I was looking forward to having a good chat about the three-body problem, which I find the trilogy. Sorry, is it what was it called now? Is it Memories of Earth's Past? I think is the name for the full trilogy, and I don't have my glasses on, so let's get that stuff sorted. And there's Sean saying, "Hey, good to see you. Hope you're feeling better." Thank you, Sean. I am. There's Joseph Smith saying, "Howdy, Joseph." So, oh, great topic. There's Carlos Crisella saying, "Hey, Doug." Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for an awful lot of nice comments. By the way, the last day or so, I was doing a wee bit of an experiment. I do it every now and then just to sort of use a browser to see if anybody if I can find my videos. And it was quite surprising because I used to be able to find them not without much trouble. That I couldn't find any, and I've got a few comments from people that have said they've had the similar experience, but we're not too bothered. It was just interesting, and as far as we were concerned, and we're pretty sure in terms of YouTube's algorithm that it's because I've been off for a year sorting things out, So there was something I wanted to say to somebody. I can't remember there's quite who it was, but just at I think it was our last Dune book club. I don't know who it was, but somebody mentioned The King of Elfland's Daughter. And I went, oh, I've got that. That's a good read. And I don't have it. It's turned out it must have been one of my books that got destroyed all those years ago. And just to let you know about Lord Dunsany, if anybody's not, we're going into fantasy a wee bit, but just to let you know, I'm reading this at the minute. And I've read it a long, long time ago. Probably in my late teens, early 20s. I don't remember it at all. I kind of remember the gist of it, and I suppose just being a bit older, etc. Just so well written. And if anybody out there is into your fantasy, your high fantasy, your J.R.R. Tolkien stuff, if you've never come across Lord Dunsany, I couldn't recommend this more. And I've picked it up, just got it, it just arrived the other day. I'm tearing through it. I love it, but it's exquisite prose. And so it was just somebody mentioning it the other day, and I thought, yeah, Lord Dunsany. And I went through my books to see if I could find it, and was mortified. And I have a few books like that, So hello, everyone. If you've got any wee comments or stuff, just pop in, say hello tonight, But I just thought I was a wee bit bored tonight, not up to much. I've got a glass of water and a cigarette here. I'll just grab it, and I thought I'd pop on because I finally finished this. And it's certainly a book that's been on a lot of people's radar. Personally, for myself, I've owned this for quite some time. I do pick up the odd new science fiction book. I find it hard to find good new science fiction. But in terms of the three-body problem, I'd had it for a while and hadn't got round to reading it. I'm pretty much, as you can maybe see, I've got one of the older covers, and then both my other editions, unfortunately, rather look quite different. But these are chunky books. The first one isn't that bad. It comes in at about just over 430 pages. The Dark Forest, just around 550. And Death's End, I think this might depend on which edition you've got, because I was listening to somebody chat about this, and they said that the number of pages in this was all, I think might have been Dominic actually from Film and Page. But my copy is coming in at 720 odd pages, which I also tore through. So I've not really been able to engage about Cixin Liu. I've seen The Wandering Earth on YouTube, and I have torn through these books, and I'm so impressed by them. And they are just fantastic. And I suppose I'm just coming on to gush about them a bit tonight. I'll have to organise my thoughts, but in terms of what they're about, I hear that these are considered hard science fiction. I don't generally believe in such a thing. I think that soft and hard science fiction, just one of these kind of things that people make up, if you like, to try and say put things into a pigeonhole. But in terms of science fiction, they are incredible. There's Connor Quincy, and Dunsany is amazing. I mean to read The King of Elfland soon. Good to hear your recommendation, Doc. No worries. As I said, somebody on I can't remember who, someone on our last live channel, our live chat mentioned Dunsany, and I went, yeah, Dunsany's great. I went to find book gone, you know. And it's a thing that happens to me periodically because I lost about 200 books through a dodgy landlord's dump, and it all just got rotted and ruined. And every now and then I go, oh, I have that book, and then realize that it was one of the victims, if you like. So it's sad because, books are my thing, really. And every now and then I do think of a book, and I realize that I don't have it. And as I'm sure you do know, that I kind of hoard books a little bit for my old age, if you like. Not everything on my bookshelf has been read. But Connor Quinn says, I inhaled the remembrance of Earth's Past series in one go to. Yeah. Once I had it, basically, Connor, I couldn't put it down. To the point where I wasn't too well last week because I ended up with a blocked tear duct that I was just reading all night and straining my eyes a bit. But inhaled it is a very good way of putting it. So yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people. I don't know. I think I've hit an age where I think of a lot of people as being young. And I was thinking about young Cixin Liu, and he's not young at all, of course. But his writing is, and it's an interesting thing, I suppose, because these are in translations. But the ideas are impressive. The writing's impressive. And I thought I'd sort of have a wee chat about a few things. The first one is that he's being compared to Arthur C. Clarke a lot. I don't see the comparison. In all honesty, I know Clarke's writing. I've been reading Clarke. China's answer to Arthur C. Clarke is what it says on the back of this book, and I really don't like it when. How would we put it? The blurb that goes on the back of a book, this kind of thing from the New Yorker, compares an author's work to another. China's answer to Arthur C. Clarke, not at all. I think Arthur C. Clarke's a very different writer. I think is a real influence on Cixin Liu. And one of the things I also thought, I mean, how do I put it? That Cixin Liu is deferential. He's too good science fiction. These books reference science fiction novels. There's a few. I think there's an obvious nod to 2001. The monolith kind of appears in here, doesn't it? But I do think that there's some of the same problems with Cixin Liu's writing, but and they're very minor. Well, it's hard for me to say if it's anything to do with his writing because, of course, these books are translated. And I think that they're translated very well. And the translators in these cases are, let me just make sure we get them. It's Ken Liu, who does the translations for the three-body problem. So the first and last book, Death's End. And we have Joel Martinson translating The Dark Forest. So it's nothing major. I think the writing's exquisite. I think it's very well done. It's just that when it comes to, I think the way to put it is that a number of characters kind of speak in the same voice, if you see what I mean. And it's a tricky thing whenever you're trying to sort of give exposition or explain complicated ideas. But what I think Liu does brilliantly, is explain these things. And I suppose what we've got is, how would we put it? I mean, it's interesting to try and categorize it. I've been thinking about all the different things that it makes me think of within science fiction. And of course, it's based on, of course, a real physics problem. And of course, the idea of the dark forest, which I think is particularly interesting. The dark forest is a theoretical idea as a sort of an explanation, if you will. Let me tell you what, let me just bring this up on the screen here for me a wee quick second. No, I don't want the book. I want. There we go. Oh, bear with me a wee second. Oh, where's it go? Click computer game. Dark. Yes, there we are. So the dark forest idea is. Let me just have a wee look here. Wikipedia has just. I'll read you the initial blurb of it. It says the dark forest hypothesis is the conjecture that many alien civilizations exist through the universe, but they are both silent and paranoid. Um, in this framing, it is presumed that any spacefaring civilization would view any other intelligent life as an inevitable threat and thus destroy any nascent life that makes itself known. As a result, the electromagnetic spectrum would be relatively quiescent, without evidence of any intelligent alien life, as in a dark forest filled with armed hunters stalking through the trees like ghosts. And that's the wee blurb that we have. First little bit there, just interesting, the paranoia, and of course that last little bit there. So it's I suppose it's a hypothetical response to the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox, for those who don't know, is it's an attempt to sort of understand why we haven't met any form of extraterrestrial life whatsoever. It's named after Enrico Fermi. Do I have the actual equation here? Hang on, let's have a wee look at it. Yeah, the Drake equation. Let's see. The theories and principles in the Drake equation are closely related to the Fermi paradox. What are we looking at here? Frank Drake. So it's basically that sense, I suppose. It's that one of those equations that's put together where n is the number of technologically advanced civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. N is asserted to be the product of the rate of, I'll just run through it for you, the rate of formation of stars in the galaxy, the fraction of those stars with planetary systems, the number of planets per solar system with an environment suitable for organic life, the fraction of those suitable planets where organic life actually appears, the fraction of habitable planets where intelligent life actually appears, and the fraction of civilizations that reach the technological level whereby detectable signals may be dispatched, and the length of time that those civilizations dispatch their signals. So, of course, the whole idea of that is that the Drake equation, all these things, is kind of, that's a way of figuring out, an attempt to see, is there anybody else there? What's the, statistically almost? And it is a frightening solution to the Fermi paradox, Connor. I think it reeks of science fiction, to be honest with you. And in terms of the equation, I don't think it's that good. I don't put a lot of stock in it. I'll tell you what, just for a wee bit of fun. You think it's a frightening solution to the Fermi paradox, Connor? Here you go, folks. I wrote a couple of poems for about Cixin Liu, and I wanted to keep them for having a chat. And I'll tell you what, I'll put them up on the wee. I'll put them up on the station. Actually, I'll maybe just stick them into a little short video. But just for, I was inspired so much by this. I'll read them to you here. Let me just catch it. So it's a frightening solution of the Fermi paradox, says Connor. Bojack Harkness says, Bojack, the far span of time we get to see is so imaginative and fun to read all the way to the end of the series. Also, the wall facer concept, so much fun. I couldn't get enough. There's Ryan the Scar going, hey, Doc, hey, guys. Hi, Ryan and Connor Quinn. Hey, by the way, Doc, and all. Hello, folks. There's so many concepts that are good in this book, isn't it? Aren't there? Sorry, it's fascinating. Let me give you my two wee poems, guys. See what you think. Now, we're having a bit of a giggle about this. So the first of these is a poem for Cixin Liu in the style of Lipo and Tufu, if you like. So here we go. I'm sure you've heard me talk about these before. I journeyed to the dark forest on the morning of the morrow, all that way to see Cixin Liu, hiding in the fourth dimension at right angles to my intent. He was not there. I learned many things. I love those types of poems. So there you go, just for a wee bit of fun. And now, as far as anybody else is concerned, if you'd like, we talk about a dark forest deterrent in these books. Here we go. Here's a haiku for you. And this is a haiku for Lou. I'll call this one. So, a haiku for Lou, real dark forest deterrent, pure vacuum bubble. There you go. Oh, I should have crushed that up. There we go. And there you go. What do you think, folks? Just for a wee bit of fun. 10 dimensions of string theory is drawn as well. Oh, where do we go? I mean, I should probably, as I said, I jumped on here because I was bored, but I should have probably made some quick things to rant and talk about. But absolutely, the wall facer program. We have sword holders. And of course, the sophons. What a fascinating concept if we really just thinking about dimensions and stuff. I've been teaching a couple of my primary school kids the other day geometry, and we're really talking about 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. And I tend to pop on, you know, to YouTube, and what we do a wee bit of stuff and get them to drawing and whatnot. But I tend to pop onto YouTube and show them the trailer for the movie Flatland, the animated film. And in many ways, I don't know if anybody knows this book, Edwin A. Abbott's Flatland, A Romance in Many Dimensions. If you're familiar with this, certainly the idea of no dimensions, for example, is point land. 1 dimension is line land, 2 dimensions flat land, 3 dimensions space land. I think somebody's written a sequel to this as well. And I just wanted to read the introduction to this, because if anybody, it's a lovely little book to the inhabitants of space in general, and HC in particular. This work is dedicated by a humble native of Flatland, in the hope that even as he was initiated into the mysteries of 3 dimensions, having been previously conversant with only 2, so the citizens of that celestial region may aspire yet higher and higher to the secrets of 4, 5, or even 6 dimensions, thereby contributing to the enlargement of the imagination and the possible development of that most rare and excellent gift of modesty among the superior races of solid humanity. And that's this is first published in 1884. Talk about people who are ahead of their time. Excellent. So going from a classic science fiction story like Flatland, for me, there's connecting the dots to lots of stories. Let me see. So I don't know if anybody enjoyed my little poems or not. You can give me a bit of feedback if you like. Connor's Quid going excellent. Dark Forest Theory, or maybe Zoo Hypothesis, or maybe Space and Time is too damn big. I'll be on and out today. No worries, Factor. In and out. Connor Quid, I like how relativity is not disobeyed. No one goes faster than light. Well, we sort of do have the light speed, the bubble thing, don't we? With the bubble. I'm trying to remember the name of the drive. There's so much to take in, and as I said, I've just finished this, and I was so impressed. Someone was making a comment there. Let me just back up. It's BoJack. The far span of time we get to see is so imaginative and fun to read all the way till the end of the series. The wall facer concept. So this span of time, I don't know if again, we're going to sort of science fiction royalty, and I might have to collapse. Oh, here we go. Of course. You know something? My favourite book by Olaf Stapleton is actually Sirius, and I gave my copy away to somebody, a dog lover, and I really must get another copy. But Olaf Stapleton's Last and First Men, Star Maker, kind of go on these kind of scales. And in particular, I thought that the scale, oh goodness gracious, just having a look at the content. So, if really impressive again, but these 2. Is it Star Maker, or is it Last and First Men? Bear with me 1 wee second. Because I've got a copy of it, but I haven't managed to. I've only watched a little bit of it. Let's see, where would we go? Sci-fi station. No, hang on, it's not there. Movies. Oh no! Yes, Last and First Men. From 2020, there's a kind of cinematic musical thing. Let me see if I can find it. What Story of the Near and Far Future, by the way. If anyone's not read Olaf Stapleton, check him out. It's Johan Johansson's Last and First Men. Let me just see if I can get a bit of info on it from there. Let me see. Directed by Johan, it's just off IMDb. Johan Johansson with Tilda Swinton. 2 billion years ahead as a future. So I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I've actually got it sitting on the computer here. Pardon me. So the epic scale is there with Cixin Liu's books. And each book pretty much self-contained in a way. I suppose not so much for the other two, but they're their own thing. And I suppose solutions to the three-body problem. I suppose that ultimately we move into the universe works with many bodies. And I suppose the one thing I thought was interesting in terms of the three different books is the pacing of them. We have quite a lot of short chapters in here. What I find difficult about the Dark Forest is because I'm the sort of person that would read to the end of a chapter, is it's really just put into as it 4 or 5 parts really without any break, if you like. But I'm the crisis here, etc. Which I didn't quite I found it not quite as easy. And then of course we have, I think it returns to a much more sort of chapter type thing. The Dark Forest kind of gave me the sense of the pressure of it, if you like, the tension, and it reminded me not using sort of chapters like that. Reminded me on Frank Herbert's The Dragon and the Sea, specifically builds up tension like that. Let me see. That's. Okay, this is something I didn't know about. Oh, go away, website. So the redemption, go away. Pop-ups, The Redemption of Time by Basho and Ken Liu. Liu support envisions the aftermath of the conflict between. Oh, I didn't. Oh, thank you. I love doing this. I find something out. Thank you very much, Connor. I hadn't really sort of heard of that. Let me just back up and read your comments there, folks. Because we're losing it. Relatives has been no one goes to FTL. Yes. I thought of Flatland too. Weaponize. Sam says hello Sam, how are you? Thanks for joining us. So Connor, that's what you're talking about. The Redemption of Time, the unofficial sequel, is quite good too. I'll have to go and check that out. Stapleton's books are great. I was amazed by those timescales as a boy. Yeah, it's been a long time. I read these in my early 20s, folks. So a long time since I read them. And but I read Sirius not too long ago. There we go. I'll pop those back up there. It's a wee bit different. I think it's very different from anything I'd read by. Well, if you're Star Maker and First and Last, or Last and First Men, isn't it? That was kind of all I read of Stapleton up until that point. And a few years back, I encountered not that long ago Sirius. And Sirius resembles my big doggy very much. So, so if anyone's not read Sirius, it's a bit like Frankenstein with a dog. I hope to do a wee video on it one day, but I will have to pick up another copy of the book. So Stapleton's a great reader. Again, we're going back to a sort of era where you think about this level of imagination that you see in these books. There's a bit of a nod to the Clockwork Orange within these books as well. Few science fiction books are mentioned and considered genius by the author, or within the story, if you like. So it's a fascinating set of books for anyone who's not read them. Check them out. They're not what you would call hard science fiction. They're not difficult to read. They have a reasonable amount of scientific and technological aspects to them that require a bit of explanation, and the author does it very, very well. One of the interesting things I thought about it was I have a pretty good imagination on me. I actually thought I read. Let me see. Is it at the back? Oh, it's quite lengthy, but it's the author's postscript. And I think it's quite interesting, his life and how much he's kind of brought. I think the other thing is really the knowledge of China itself. And all sorts of things. But I thought what was particularly interesting is he must have a particularly curious mind. And it was simply that, if I can find it, he was talking about that he can visualize these things. Here it is. I'll just read this wee passage from this is from the author's little note to the end of the three-body problem. So it's right at the back here. It just says it's talking about I suppose the launch of satellites like Sputnik and Dongfang Hong, which is the East is Red one. Let me see. Talking about his parents weren't with him because they were working in a coal mine, etc. By the time I saw Dongfang one, I'd already lived there for more than 3 years. A few more years passed before I understood the distance between that satellite and the stars. Back then, I was reading a popular set of basic science books called 100,000 Whys. Great name for a science book, isn't it? From the astronomy volume, I learned the concept of a light year. Before then, I had already known that light could traverse a distance equal to 7.5 trips around the Earth in a single second, but I had not contemplated what kind of terrifying distance could be crossed by flying at such a speed for a whole year. I imagined a ray of light passing through the cold silence of space at the speed of 300,000 kilometers per second. I struggled to grasp the bone-chilling vastness and profundity with my imagination, felt the weight of an immense terror and awe, and simultaneously enjoyed a drug-like euphoria. I think this is, hopefully this is the wee bit. From that moment, I realized that I had a special talent, skills and existences that far exceeded the bounds of human sensory perception, excuse me, both macro and micro, and that seemed to be only abstract numbers to others, could take on concrete forms in my mind. I could touch them and feel them, much like others could touch and feel trees and rocks. Even today, when references to the 15 billion light year radius of the universe and strings, many orders of magnitude smaller than quarks have numbered most people, the concepts of a light year and nanometer can still produce lively, grand pictures in my mind and arouse in me an ineffable religious feeling of awe and shock. Compared to most of the population who do not experience such sensations, I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky. But it is certain that such feelings made me first into a science fiction fan and later a science fiction author. I think that's a fascinating thing. Excuse me. And particularly, I actually thought it was one of the most interesting things I read in the book was about himself. And I don't know anybody who's good at visualization. I'm particularly good at it. It's not always a good thing. If you can imagine the best, you can imagine the worst, I suppose. But there you go. It's an interesting that this man can visualize this and has done such a great job of using language, using words to describe this these ideas and frame them in a story that is actually interesting. A lot of the time science fiction throws an idea at you. And it depends. The ideas can be great, but the stories can be rubbish. Sometimes it's a bit of a sad thing. This is the opposite. And of course, a lot of the stuff isn't new. But the way it's treated, I think, is very, very fresh, and I think it's certainly opened a lot of people's minds. Let me just catch up with your comments, folks. I like Connor. I love that question. Or sorry, I love that statement. Weaponizing Flatland. I think that's brilliant. Very good. Staple's books are great. I was amazed. Bojack saying, I still haven't read Redemption of Time, but I know a bit about it. Most definitely will read it soon. And Connor saying, happy to help, Doc. And I misspoke. It's official, in fact. What's that? Unofficial sequel. Oh yes, it's an official sequel. It's approved of by the, isn't it? I think. Just having quickly read that blurb there. The books imply that totalitarianism is a natural and necessary state. The ship Blue Space turns totalitarian straight away. The Trisaurians and Singers people are already. Singer's an interesting thing, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose we get different ideas. It's what do you do when your back's against the wall? I suppose. And what I do like is that some of the ideas don't work, if you like, or they end up working, but not in the way you think. But yeah, I thought. Now let me see if I can get the names of these things right. Blue Space. First, what's the death? The other thing, yes, Dark Forest. When things happen in this book, I mean, you plod along for a while, you think, yeah, and then the events happen, and wow, the action accelerates really fast, doesn't it? And, and I suppose we have the four different wall facers. I'm just trying to find something. I'm thinking on it's to do with the first space battles, isn't it? And we eventually have the ships thinking that they're all going to attack each other, and who sort of preempts them. And blue space, yes, the ships indeed. And totalitarian, and at the same time, something not about it. The Trisaurians and the Singers people are. What I think is particularly, God, you could go on all day. I really must organise my thoughts on this, folks. But yes, I thought when the action happened, when the events occurred, it was whoa, here we go. And what is it? The droplet. Whenever the actual first big battle between the the forces of Earth and the Trisolarians is incredible, and this little. It's not a battle, is it? It's a massacre. And it really does up the ante, doesn't it? It's like, wow, what can mankind do against this kind of thing? And wall facers. I think one of the most interesting concepts. Let's see if I can get the cast of characters and stuff open here a wee bit. One of the most fascinating concepts is, of course, the Sophon itself. And it comes from Sophia, doesn't it? And photon. Let me just look this up. Just in the author's own imagination. Let's see. Oh, Sophon's a real name. There you go. Fictional elementary particle in the novel, a fictional character in a death set. Let's go there. Let's see. Can we see the Sophon? Of course, we're going to be getting a three-body problem Netflix series soon, aren't we? It's been ordered David Benioff and D.B. Weiss and Alexander Reset to right. I thought it was looking good. I think it'll be very interesting to see. No, I can't find that little thing there. Bear with me a wee second, folks. Goodness gracious. Let me see. Sorry, I wasn't finding what I was looking for. So the Sophon, the idea of building an artificial intelligence in a certain amount and then folding it up, picking it across the universe, and letting it unpack itself. And of course, the purpose of this initially is to slow down the development of human science, really, isn't it? Speeds up your bugs to them frightening. Yeah, I hope the Netflix version does it justice. There's a couple of things that I did wonder about. And first of all, the concept of what's the biggest weapon, theoretical weapon that we could make right now. And I'm not sure if we could do it now, but I think we probably could. And of course, it's a thing that you wouldn't want to do, but is a pure vacuum bubble. And so, if we're talking about a deterrent to any civilization, if mankind can build something that could, at a moment, generate a pure vacuum bubble, then we have a mutually assured destruction deterrent for the entire universe, which is very scary to think of. If anyone's not familiar, that was my little kind of thing about the haiku for Lou, dark forest deterrent, or real dark forest deterrent, pure vacuum bubble. Kind of wondered why he hadn't thought of it. But it's pretty much, it would probably just end the story very quickly, wouldn't it? I hope the Netflix version does it justice. I hope so too, says Connor. I do too. It would be nice. I hope this is treated well. It deserves respect. And it's got me thinking. It's got me thinking about dimensions and stuff. And I don't know. Let me see if I got my. I used to read a lot of this stuff years and years ago with my little science book collection. Bear with me a second. I'm running over here. Where's hyperspace? There you go. This kind of stuff. This be Shukaku's. Goodness, this is old. You can tell by the coffee stains on it. Hyperspace, but Scientific Odyssey through the 10th dimension. So it's interesting if you're familiar with dimensional theory, this kind of stuff, even something like Flatland. What Cixin Liu really does so brilliantly, I think, is he brings a knowledge of science fiction, the greater ideas of it, if you like, the great ideas of science. He's very, I think he's very, what's the word? When he's referencing these other science fiction books, he's incredibly respectful and almost in awe of them, I think. And certainly, even the little nod to 2001, I think at the end of Death's End, isn't it? There's a monolith. It's not derivative in any way. It's not like you could go and say, "Oh, this is a bit of a rip-off of this kind of thing," And bear with me a second. No. There we go. We'll just pop it on to. I have a whole bunch. Wikipedia is great sometimes for this kind of stuff. That saves me having to go dig out massive books and figure out where the page is. So just in terms of science fiction, this isn't new. Just what Wikipedia has, it says the hypothesis described by astronomer and author David Brin in his 1983 summary of the arguments for and against the Fermi paradox, for which this hypothesis is one potential solution. In 1987, sci-fi author Greg Bear explored the concept in his novel The Forge of God. The term dark forest hypothesis was later applied to the idea in Cixin Liu's 2008 science fiction novel The Dark Forest. It just says in The Forge of God, humanity is likened to a baby crying in a hostile forest. There once was an infant lost in the woods, crying its heart out, wondering why no one answered, drawing down the wolves. One of the characters explains, "We've been sitting in our tree, chirping like foolish birds for over a century now, wondering why no other birds answered. The galactic skies are full of hawks. That's why. Planetisms that don't know enough to keep quiet get eaten." So there we go. And of course, we have this. We have so many different things within Cixin Liu's work. Goodness, but even the first book, I suppose the main thing that I was very impressed with within the first book was we have this idea of, is it cosmic sociology, but in particular the three-body game itself. As much as we're talking about totalitarianism there, we have real dissidence within this book, scientific dissidence, if you like. And in particular, the first chapter of the Madness here is that sets up, I suppose, the background for UNG is it was very interesting. I don't read too much. I've not read a lot of Chinese literature, but what I have read I really like. But it's mostly poetic stuff and things like Wu Chang'an, things like that. If I'm pronouncing that right, the Outlaws, or sorry, the Journey to Chang'an, isn't it? Outlaws of the Marsh and the Journey to the West. This kind of thing. That's the kind of Chinese literature that I would have read. I've still got to get round to reading the other two of the great Chinese novels, if you like. Connor Quinn says D&D can adapt others' work. All right, GOT went wrong when they wrote their own story. Yes, I thought Game of Thrones was pretty derivative, in all honesty. It always has been. The books in particular, I often thought that it's not there's an original story in there, etc. But following the books, I wonder if we'll ever get the final book from George R.R. Martin. But I thought it was following some of the stuff that seemed a bit like Elric, etc. That kind of thing, the Horn of Fate, that stuff. And for a wee while, I thought it was going there. There's too many things in Game of Thrones that are almost pulled. And to hear the name Stormbringer just really got on my nerves, to be honest with you. But yes, the ending was appalling, wasn't it? It was not good. And I think sometimes when you draw a story out too much, ultimately it can be anticlimactic. And I also think, not to spoil it for anyone, that the conclusion to this was very satisfactory, I think. And you could say that ultimately, you could almost say that it's a kind of there's a what we call a shaggy god story in science fiction, which there are quite a lot of them. Though I would happily remove the term shaggy from it. But yes, the idea, I suppose, that mankind has to sort of work towards this, and it happens to be our pretty much closest stellar neighbor, the Trisolarians, aren't they? The idea of the wall facers, for example, as much as we talk about totalitarianism, it's a very interesting idea of handing collective almost responsibility over to four individuals, which is kind of bizarre. And of course, we understand the reason for it, that these sophons can sort of pretty much eavesdrop or on anything. The Trisolarians, and what I do particularly love about it is that they're not particular. They have no ability to deceive. Isn't that correct? That they're not into it. So simply put, the creation of these four wall facers, who are to work independently of everyone else, do their own thing, and that they're given carte blanche, aren't they? Which is kind of strange, and it doesn't work very well. Ultimately, I think. Although, of course, the main wall facer character is Liu Ji, isn't it? There's so many characters. Yes, Liu Ji, discoverer of the dark forest theory, creator of the dark forest deterrence, etc. Is an excellent character, I think, and remained particularly enigmatic, I think, in the last book. Yeah. Droplets, that's what I was thinking on that. The idea of the battles in it are incredible, I think, and the ideas of the ships. I really do must collect my thoughts on this, but there's so much to think about. And having a wee look through Cixin Liu's The World of Cixin Liu's wee thing here on the back. 3-body gas and Remembrance of Earth's Past. So we have certainly there's other books here: the Supernova Era, Ball Lightning, of Ants and Dinosaurs, and Hold Up the Sky. I'm definitely going to be checking this guy out, and I would say this for him. I like to consider Ian M. Banks as the benchmark for modern science fiction in the 20th century, or 21st century now, 20th and 21st century, and I would consider this a new benchmark. The only thing I would say about it is this: the one of the most common things within science fiction, what won't overtake the culture, is that the culture is the most positive outcome, if you like, in terms of the idea of the culture is what's the best outcome for mankind, and it's the culture. It's not the Federation or any of that nonsense. It's the culture. Socio-anarchic meta-species. It's the positivity of the culture that I think will make it stand as a certain thing. Like many science, like a lot of science fiction, I suppose we do explore the doom and gloom scenario, and it's an existential sort of crisis for all of humanity. These books, and they're fascinating. If anyone's got any specific questions, fire away. Or if you'd like to tell me what the most interesting thing you thought of in these books was. I particularly enjoyed the concept of the sophons and of the packing and unpacking of dimensional things. And it really did get my imagination going, And now, up until this, I thought that the most kind of impressive thing that had been on the scene really was Anne Leckie's ancillary Justice, ancillary Sword, and ancillary Mercy, that trilogy. But Anne Leckie's sort of written another book in that universe, which was very, very poor, I thought. But consistently, the difference in these books. And to tear through a book like this to the point where I'm racking my eyes, it's a wonderful book. The character of Singer's an interesting one, isn't it? The idea that we can destroy stars with flicking a mote of dust, basically at the speed of light through the universe, this kind of thing, into a star. So it's a bizarre sort of concept, the Dark Forest. And I don't think I agree with it. to be honest with you, it is a very interesting concept, and I do think that when you got to the point where, put it this way, if we thought about the dark forest, if every society could get to the point of where you can create a pure vacuum bubble, then it's just a mutually it's a bit like the nuclear situation on the Earth at the minute, isn't it? It's just mutually assured destruction. Nobody will dare, or will they? But if anybody's not heard of a pure vacuum bubble, I think, let me see, can we find you a video on YouTube that will give you a fair idea of what it does. And I used to read up sort of odd scientific journals and articles and stuff, particularly on quantum tunneling. Oh, but let's see. I did see. No. I still have a pure vacuum. Anybody? What happens to an anti-bubble? No. No, I'm actually not seeing it. I'll have a wee nosy the next time to see if I can find you something that will kind of let you go and check out what a pure vacuum bubble is. The collapse of the dimensions is a kind of a wild concept. It's brilliant. There's another wee thing, by the way. Here, let me just quickly. I was showing my student one of these things the other day. Again, we're just talking about dimensions. Oh goodness, what was it? Was it? Something that's pretty interesting here. Let me see if I can find it. Yes. Right. Let me just. I don't want to play that, but let's grab the link. This is pretty interesting. If anybody's not seen it, there's a wee link on YouTube. You can check it out later on now if you like. But it's to do with Mia Gakuri. There you go. Yes. Now, if anybody wants to check something that's really cool in about 4-dimensional worlds, have a look at that on YouTube. It's really interesting. False vacuum decay. Let's check that. Is this another name for it? Hang on. If you're not right, a quantum field theory. A false vacuum is a hypothetical vacuum that is relatively stable, but not in the most stable state possible. This condition is known as metastable. It may last for a very long time in the state, but eventually could decay to a more stable state, an event known as false vacuum decay. The most common suggestion of how such a decay might happen is called bubble nucleation. If a small region of the universe by chance reached a more stable vacuum, this bubble also caused would spread. Yes. A false vacuum exits at a local minimum of energy and is therefore not completely stable, in contrast to a true vacuum, which exists at a global minimum and is stable. Definitions of true, false vacuum. It's an existential threat. If our universe is in a false vacuum state rather than a true vacuum state, then the decay from the less stable false vacuum to the more stable true vacuum, called false vacuum decay, could have dramatic consequences. Let me see. More extreme case like of a bubble forming may be very low. False vacuum decay may be impossible. I wonder, am I using an old-fashioned name for a pure vacuum bubble? I read about this kind of stuff a long time ago. What I did think was particularly interesting was the baby universes. If you like, in the last book, they were fascinating. The idea of removing matter from the universe and having to put it back. I thought, yeah, there's so much. I will gather my thoughts, folks, and but I said I was just a wee bit bored tonight. I wanted to pop on for a bit of a chat and just go, wow, so impressed, The collapse of the dimension. I'd like to hear any reading recommendations you have, Doc. No problem, Connor. I'll give you a few in a wee moment. Is it like a negative strangelet or vacuum collapse? And Ryan saying, guess it works like a black hole due to the pressure difference. My understanding is we can create a pure vacuum bubble. And if you released it, off it goes. And it would just wipe out the universe very fast. I will look for this, folks. I'm not too sure, but I have some really old scientific papers on my on an old hard drive somewhere. I'll have a wee nosy. But I have watched something on YouTube. It was something to do with how to destroy the universe, pretty much. But pure vacuum bubble is a weapon that's particularly impressive. You know, maybe I'll do the pressure difference. But my understanding is if somebody does it, we'll not know about it. We'll all be gone after, like instantly. We're gone and off it goes. It could create a new universe. Concepts, ideas that will truly blow your mind. Goodness, that's to say, I'm trying to get the head around what I should have really scribbled some notes, but I think it's just my excitement. Blue space and gravity, and particularly the eras, I think, as well, the bunker era. This kind of thing. We go from this thing that kind of matches up with the likes of Olaf Stapleton, the scale of these stories. For anyone who's not got there, we got a table of eras within Death's End. We're really going from the present, let me see, to the year, how do I read that? 18,906,416. Our timeline for Universe 647. It's big, isn't it? Isaac Arthur got some videos about weapons of mass destruction, like RMKs. Isaac Arthur's. I catch his website every now and then. Yeah, subscribe. Isaac Arthur is very much worth it. He is. I do like his. I'm thinking on the same person. I don't know what's the accent. What is the guy I'm thinking on? Isn't it on YouTube? Yes. Yes, it's an excellent channel. I really like it. I catch it when I can. I haven't managed to catch any of the live ones, but I do pop in and look at his ideas. It's very good. Wonder what the accent is. And I'm very bad at American accents, but it sounds like a kind of, I don't know, like a Southern Texas maybe. I'm not. I wouldn't know. Maybe someone could inform me. He's got a speech impairment. I did not know that. I just thought it was an American, I don't know. It sounded like a Southern American accent. As in PBS space time. Oh, hang on. I think there's very much more. Must have a wee nosy. In PBS space time. PBS space time, is that public broadcasting service in America, Connor? If I'm thinking correctly. Or am I? It is indeed. Thank you. Sorry, I'm really bad with Ryan RMKs. By the way, I got WMDs. I'm not too sure. RKMs. God, I love it when people expand acronyms. By the way, but it is PBS. Thank you. PBS is really good, isn't it? I mean, public broadcasting services for. That's the idea in America. Almost anybody can have a wee TV channel, isn't it? Public broadcasting service. Thank you, Ryan. Isn't that kind of what do you call him? Bob Ross, that sort of thing, isn't it? I think he started there. It's not something we have here in the UK, sadly. Book recommendations. Who was asking me? Let me just back up a wee bit. Was it Connor? I think. Did you ask for a few? Let me see. I can't remember who asked me. Sorry, I'm scrolling up there trying to find it. Relativistic kill missile. Thank you, Ryan. Got you. It was you, Connor. Thank you. Connor, I don't know what sort of stuff. As I said, this is a catch up for me, and I love finding new science fiction that's good. It's hard to find it at all, to be honest with you, because there's so much. Like all things, I suppose. Well, I'll tell you what I'm reading at the minute. I suppose La Morte d'Arthur. There's a new thing. If you want a good read that. Can't recommend it more. One of the finest. This kind of writing, and it's a bit different, but there's real time and effort. This book was written with a quill pen. which is just to get in the mood, this kind of thing. That's fantastic. It is fantasy. I do read. I don't read a lot of fantasy because it's all so derivative, and it's one of the things that really pushed me towards being a classicist, because I discovered once upon a time that almost all fantasy novels are a rip-off of someone's myth. But let's see, what have we got recently? I'll tell you what, I can give you the biggies, Connor. If you haven't read any of these, if you haven't read the Hyperion Cantos, we'll be doing stuff on all of this soon. For me to make a video on something, I really like to refresh my memory. But if you haven't read Hyperion, now these are pretty much you have it, you love them. Yeah. If you haven't read the Hyperion Cantos, and I mean all four, and some people just think Endymion and Rhizome and Endymion aren't very good. They are. They're fascinating. Staying with Dan Simmons, if particularly for me as a classicist, Dan Simmons is wonderful. His great strength is metatextuality. He really does this so well. Ilium and Olympus, which is a 2-book set, fascinating. Loved it. And of course, what have we got else here? Anything by Ian Banks, read it. I'm having a wee bit. I'm looking to prepare. I have the complete works of Lucian of Samosata here, and I'm hoping to do a couple of audiobooks. And the one I've actually stopped myself from getting on with it, but I thought, just in terms of presenting public domain stuff and going back to the granddaddies of them all, we have the True History by Lucian. But what I wanted to present for you was what's called the Acaromenopus. And it's written as a dialogue, so I'm trying to figure out how to do it. It's more actually written like a play. Let's see, who have we got here? I must take you through my bookcase one day. Anybody hasn't read this? Here's something beautiful, by the way. And I've would never buy books like this generally. And if anyone hasn't read this is by Coralie Bickford Smith. And this is beautiful, exquisite. The Fox and the Star. Not many books like this. It's not a kid's book, but you give it to kids. It's a very quick read. You can read it in 5-10 minutes. It's beautiful. And I just remember, not my cup of tea, not my usual cup of tea, but remember seeing that and just having a wee flick through and enjoying it so well. This is all, let's see, what have we got here? Lovecraft. Some of these are more sort of Carl Sagan and stuff. Alistair Reynolds' stuff's pretty good. He is a bit derivative. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's a bit of a rip-off merchant, to be honest, on a couple of things. Right. Connor, have you read any of the Strugatsky brothers? If you haven't given Hyperion, go for it. You'll be into it for a while. Anyone who hasn't read the Strugatsky brothers, if you like Philip K. Dick, this kind of stuff, their stuff are masterpieces. They're brilliant. They're so either weird or funny. And let me introduce the wonderful Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, Russian science fiction that's just mind-blowing. Hard to Be a God, and there's a film of that by Alexei Jarrett. Amazing. Great book, great film. One of the best. 3 hours of what's this, and it's delicious. Roadside Picnic, absolutely. Oh, here, I've been thinking about doing a video on that real soon. My wife read it recently. She enjoyed it. Roadside Picnic's one of my all-time favorite books. I've read it 3 times now. Anyone who hasn't read it, it's got to be in the top 10 single novels of science fiction of all time. Its influence is massive, as I like to point out. Roadside, yes, thank you, says Sean, for recommending Roadside Picnic to me. Roadside Picnic is great. Right? It's bumped up. It's a delight, and it's heartbreaking. It's really sad, I think. A man and his dog. Is that different? A boy and his dog? Are you thinking on there, or is that a different thing, Ryan? Roadside Picnic. I've got to really go with Monday starts on Saturday, by the way, for the Strugatsky brothers. I had me in stitches. and the divan thing and all. These authors, if anybody, let me just grab a couple of these down here. I'm hoping to maybe go to the Dune City soon, which is one I haven't read. Let's see. Excuse me, we're still in the process of getting this house sorted out. But let's just grab these here and bring them down and show you a wee bit of them. And I'm about to get. I've got a couple of these to read. Oh, that's cool. I'll stay there. The snail on the slope. We've got a bit of book levitation going on, isn't that quite groovy? This is the one I haven't read yet. Looking forward to it. It's chunkier than a lot of their books. Right. So they're the fabulous Strugatsky brothers. Wow. Roadside Picnic, science fiction royalty. Masterpiece. Very few books to compare to it. This is The Zone. Of course, you might know about Stalkers in The Zone. That is the book. A Boy and His Dog, absolutely. If you're going to read that, folks, get the new one. Bloods Are Over is what it's called. It's the complete stories of Vic and Blood, which is great. Hard to Be a God. That's amazing. Absolutely. That's a really great cover, by the way. I don't know if you can see that. Hard to Be a God. All of Star Trek's kind of prime directive nonsense comes from this in a way. And of course, this is the one that the Alexei German film, the 3-hour film. If anyone hasn't seen that film, it needs to be seen. That's the way I put it. It needs to be seen to be believed. It's incredible. And if you've read this book beforehand, oh wow. But this is this one's great, and it's a homage to sort of sci-fi detective stories in a funny way. Just reading you the bit off the back here, it says the bottom line is that amazing things don't just happen in our inn. One has only to recall, for example, the unidentified flying objects. This is just the blurb on the back here. If you the result, worn down, just very interesting here. Worn down by the censors and hungry to publish something more lighthearted than their usual fare, Boris and Arkady Strugatsky, the greatest science fiction writers of the Soviet era, decided to try their hand at a detective novel. There'd be a locked room, a house full of oddballs, sure, but the wildly imaginative Strugatskys would never let a formula get in the way of the weird. The result was The Dead Mountaineers Inn. Beloved by Russian-speaking readers since its publication in 1970, this hilarious and wildly off-kilter mystery is finally available in English translation for the first time. When Inspector Peter Glebsky arrives at a remote ski chalet, he intends to ski, drink brandy, and loaf around in blissful solitude. But the chalet's other vacationers, a famous hypnotist, a physicist with a penchant for gymnastic feats, and a large handful of others are a nuisance. And so is the avalanche that soon cuts the inn off from civilization. And then there's the dead body, which may not even be human. It's a genre-bending, genre-demolishing novel. The Strugatskys gleefully upend the plot of many a Hercule Poirot mystery, and the result is much funnier and much stranger than anything ever written by Agatha Christie. Featuring a witty and insightful introduction by Jeff Vandermeer, The Dead Mountaineers is essential reading for fans of Soviet science fiction, classic mystery, and of course remote ski chalets snowed in by avalanches. It's really funny. It's bizarre. You can call it science fiction, no bother. But this one, I really like. This one made me laugh a lot. And this is the thing, that they're funny. Some of their stories are a little bit darker. I have another one here that I read recently. Hang on, it's 1 billion years to the end of the world. That's the most recent one I've read. It's a nice little short one. That came out with this Penguin Science Fiction Classics edition. The mordantly funny tale from Soviet Russia's leading science fiction writer is the story of astrophysicist Dmitry Malyanov. As he reaches a major breakthrough, he finds himself plagued by interruptions from a mysterious crate of vodka to a glamorous woman on his doorstep. Is the universe trying to tell him something? This one's a wee bit darker, I thought, but I still enjoyed it. There's the I'm ashamed to say I'd never heard of these guys up until about maybe about 15 years ago, I suppose. They're not authors that I read when I was young. I was unaware of them, and they're great, but don't it's they're superb science fiction, and if you understand about the Soviet era censorship put on these guys and how they had to work to get around it, I would really like to read a good biography. Actually, I must have a look if there's a really good biography of Arcady and Boris Strugatsky. So impressed. They're up there. If you like Philip K. Dick, that kind of thing, you'd love them. Anything by Philip K. Dick. Connor is amazing. But recent finished the Southern Reach trilogy. Loved it, says Bojack. I think you mentioned that earlier, yeah. I love it if there were Fallen London novels. I would love it if there were Fallen London novels. I think there's probably. Ryan, there's a whole range of what they're called Thames Valley disaster novels. If that's the kind of thing you're thinking of. The War of the Worlds is one of them. They're quite fun, those books, I think. We did a wee bit about some of them in. Let me see. One of them, I did like a wee 5-episode thing, like a very brief history of science fiction. I mentioned a few of them in there. Library was shut down for 2 years and just reopened, so I've been tearing through them. I love it if they're falling. Sounds great. Valis is a favorite of mine. I love Val. Yeah. After all, Earth Abides. Earth Abides is a good book. Yes. Jordan. Yeah, that's one that's very much involved. I suppose that you can, in terms of books that came out with the environmental message, it's up there with Dune, I think. One other one's really, if you're looking for the sci-fi royalties, Gene Wolfe's The Book of the New Sun. Now that's 4 books actually. So these are the Sci-Fi Masterworks editions. I've read these once, and again, I suppose as a classicist, there's things in this that I pick up on that maybe other people don't. These aren't an easy read, but they are. Oh, I've got sadly damaged it a wee bit. They're incredible, and a lot of people think these are fantasy books. They're not. They are science fiction of the highest caliber. I'll read you the blurb on the back. So the first book is called The Book of the New Sun, Volume 1, Shadow and Claw. Here, now, let me see. So that contains the first 2 books, which are The Shadow of the Torture. So you can buy these as individual novels. This is Science Fiction Masterworks has put 4 novels into 2 volumes. So they're called The Shadow of the Torture, The Claw of the Conciliator, The Sword of the Lictor, and The Citadel of the Autarch. And they're fascinating. They're interesting, strange. And the next time I hit these books, I'm going at them with a pen. If you understand me, I'm going to write all over them because there's so much in them. They're a sort of book that once you've read them once, you'll have a strong urge to reread them. I'm trying to. Ubik is a book that's like that. Once you realize what's been done, I think at the end of the last book. Now these go on and on. I haven't read further into this world. I think. Let me just see. But they are brilliant. I would say that if you weren't too sure about them, go give The Shadow of the Torture a read, and so individually each book wouldn't be too long, I suppose. But if you could get through the first book, okay, you'll get through the rest of them fine. It's a bit like Dune in the way that there's certain aspects of language that are played with in these books, and they are rewarding to a reader who perseveres. But it depends on The Shadow of the Torture? Yes. I finished Blindsight yesterday. It was a crazy one. I might try Blindsight too. I had to read Blindsight twice. Honestly, some went over my head. Okay. Yeah. Right, never heard of it. Let's have a look. Right, Blindsight is a hard science fiction novel by Canadian writer Peter Watts, published by Tor Books. Won the Sagan Award for Best Translated Novel. Was nominated for the Hugo Award for Best Novel, John W. Campbell Memorial Award for Best Sci-Fi and Locus. Okay, story follows a crew of astronauts sent out as the third wave, following 2 series of probes to investigate a trans-Neptunian Kuiper Belt comet dubbed Burns-Kuiper that has been found to be transmitting an unidentified radio signal to a yet unknown destination elsewhere in the solar system. Followed by the novel explores themes of identity, consciousness, free will, artificial intelligence, neurology, game theory, as well as the evolution of biology. Pardon me. Blindsight is available online under a Creative Commons license. Its sequel or sidequel, Echopraxia, came out in 2014. I've never heard of that. But there's plenty of things. I sort of been out of touch for a wee while. The Theseus. Always good when we reference the classical world. Sounds interesting. It's about unconscious aliens, isn't it? Says Connor. Yeah, I must have a wee nosy. I've got so much to read as always, folks. But this is again science fiction royalty. If the big series, and I have to say, in the days past, I think we had things like Foundation, and Dune, the Dune series, Foundation series. There are certain books that, and that's the way we used to think, and that these were the best. I don't think of Dune that way anymore. I certainly don't think of Foundation that way anymore. These are the masterpieces of science fiction that put them in the shade very easily, and they're big ideas as well. But it's an interesting. I don't know. I find it a very intimate set of books. I enjoyed them. But I read all sorts of things. If anybody wants some steampunk stuff, there's what would you call that? Is it The Curious Case of... Hang on, I can't read the title from here. These are good, but I don't read a lot of steampunk. Oh, something. The Strange Affair of Spring-Heeled Jack by Mark Hodder. Quite nice books. And the blurb, of course, on it, just to let you know, is the best debut novel I've read in ages from Michael Moorcock. 1861, and the Albertian Britain is in the grip of... God, that font's awful. Can't even read it. Conflicting forces. There you go. I particularly like these. The reason why I bought them is I'm a big fan of Captain Sir Richard Francis Burton. He's a particular interest to me and has been throughout a fair amount of my life. He's a person that I would model myself. Well, I wouldn't go as far as that, but that I admire. And Captain, this is not the actor, of course. Captain Sir Richard Francis Burton is. We wouldn't have things like the Kama Sutra in the West without him. He's and the great translator of the Arabian Nights, of course. So he's the main character, along with who is it? It's it's kind of funny, isn't it? It's the poet Washburn, isn't it? Goodness gracious me, what's his name? Yeah, and they're very good. The Strange Affair of Spring-Heeled Jack. If you want to look up Spring-Heeled Jack on Wikipedia, that's quite interesting. It's a Victorian sort of weird guy that appears out of nowhere. Gosh, what's his name? Hang on a second. Sorry. Goodness, I'll not find it by reading the book. Hang on. I'm trying to figure out the name of the other character. Poets. Which poet? I'm trying to remember. It's not Washburn. What's the name of the poet? Swinburne. That's it. Swinburne. Hang on. Who am I thinking on? Algernon Charles Swinburne. There we go. Sorry, my old memory. The characters of Richard Francis Burton. It's kind of funny if you know anything about Burton, and he teams up with Algernon Charles Swinburne. It's just kind of funny if you know anything about the pair of them. But they're great kind of steampunk novels. Not a big thing I'm into, but there's I read 3 of them. They became a whole series. That's usually for time for me to I'm out. But this is A Strange Affair of Spring-Heeled Jack, and then there's The Expedition to the Mountains of the Moon, and of course The Curious Case of the Clockwork Man are the first 3, and I enjoyed them very much. But I'm not into lengthy series, but it was really because I'm very much a big fan of Richard Francis Burton, that kind of thing. If anybody wants an amazing read about him, the book is called The Devil Drives. Oh, here we go, by Fawn Brodie. That's a fantastic biography. And of course, Richard Francis Burton is the lead character of. So he's appeared in science fiction before. Excuse me a wee second. And of course, where he does appear as a character greatly, it's Philip Jose Farmer's The Riverworld series. And for those of you who know me, Connor's got it there. Burton was in it. Jack is a sort of penny dreadful character. He's meant to. Well, again, he's a thing that. If you look into it, it's a thing that kind of went on, and people were a bit scared. Is it, sort of like almost a sort of supernatural thing, if you like, kind of, but didn't seem to do any. It seemed quite absurd, I think. Let me see. Let's just catch up with your exactly kind of intriguing. We don't Echopraxia from another library, but I'll read that soon and give my opinion. Stragatsky's sound great. Is Echopraxia the sequel? Yes, sorry, I should have specified. It is the sequel, says Bojack. The Stragatskys are brilliant. And they're one of those ones where my wife always asks me what. We're not really into Christmas or anything, but my wife generally asks me, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm a second-hand. I don't tell her to go and buy me new books or anything, but I'll pick an author and just get me anything by them, please, second-hand, as many as you can, and that's where I get a lot of my. So she's very good at that, and she's bought me quite a few. And I have another one that's meant to be pretty good up there. The one that's holding everything up as if by magic is The Snail on the Slope, and I haven't read it yet. It's just goodness, isn't it? The sad thing about books is time. They take time to read. I don't know, Connor. There's and anybody really. There's all sorts of Jack's sort of a penny dreadful character. Would kind of the book doesn't come across that way. I think it's much more sort of steampunky, but it's good. Well written, and I thought because I enjoyed Richard Francis Burton and Algernon Swinburne, if you know a wee bit about him, the author's done his research well, and I enjoyed them. But for anyone who hasn't read Riverworld series, To Your Scattered Bodies Go is the first book, and it's again science fiction royalty. It's a book that led me to many other books, and in particular, after reading the Riverworld series. That's when I went and bought my biography of Richard Francis Burton. That's when I went and bought my copy of the poems of Lai Po and Tu Fu. It's one of those things that it was simply most of the characters, as far as I know, within the fabulous Riverworld series. I'm just looking for it. Here it is. Are historical personages, if you like. They put Mad Max. There we go. There's a bit of Harry Harrison. If you haven't read a lot of Philip K. Dick, I'd go with Ubik. Scanner Darkly is a good one. What else have we got here? Galactic Pot Healer and Ubik are my two favourite Philip K. Dick stories. What's that? Cantata 140. Flow My Tears, the policeman said, is a great one, and I'm rather fond of Dr. Blood Money. Android's Dream, sure. Valis, the Divine Invasion's there. We Can Build You is a good one. But Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. Ubik and Galactic Pot Healer is such a whimsical book, I think. I love it. This is what I have. This is the Riverworld. There we go. I love all these old boxes. Now there's more stuff, I think. So there, in To Your Scattered Bodies Go, the fabulous Riverboat. Goodness, I can't read. There's no. What's that one called? I can't make it out. The Dark Design, The Magic Labyrinth, and The Gods of Riverworld. They were brilliant. They fascinated me when I read them. There was an appalling attempt to make it into a TV series or something a while back. And the one thing they did was they replaced Richard Francis Burton with an American astronaut. And why? Because what a fascinating real person, He's incredibly interesting. Let's see. I've only read a few short stories of River, to be honest. To Your Scattered Bodies Go, as if you look at the cover, it's it's very much the start of the Matrix. The Matrix, I always said, is a combination of To Your Scattered Bodies Go and Dune. But there you go. I haven't read any of these yet. It's, you know what? I have all of his Arabian Nights. Oh, here, I better back up a bit. Hang on. Burton's an Innocent River World. Thanks. On the corner. Well, they're quite short novels. You can get through them quite quickly. If only we buy the time when we buy the book. Yes, indeed. And to be honest with you, I would get so much more done if I reviewed films or TV series or stuff. But books take a bit of time and effort, don't they? The part of Star Maker that reminds you of the Matrix. Yeah. I got a lot of. I thought a lot of the Matrix was from Dune. It's not not a desert world. It's changed the setting, if you like. There's one for you folks, by the way. This is good. The King in Yellow. Robert W. Chambers. Wonderful. I'm thinking of taking the 4 stories. There's a few stories here, but there's some of this is science fiction, Some of it's slightly, I don't know. I was thinking on taking the 4 stories about that feature the King in Yellow and putting them together as we see audio things. It's the King in Yellow, the Repairer of Reputations, the Mask, the Court of the Dragon, the Yellow Sign. I quite like the Demosel de in this book as well. But if you've not hit Robert W. Chambers, this wee thin book, that's lovely. Sci-fi, horror, supernatural, a little bit of everything. But particularly the first story I thought was, it's very much science fiction. But I wonder is it here just quickly. This is the bit from the Mask. This is just the epigraph, if you like, at the front of the page. Pardon me. This is the kind of thing I love about the King and Yellow. It's referring to a fictional book. Something really strange happened to me when I bought this book, and it's completely true. Is that if it's about reading the book? It's a bit meta. If you read this book, you'll go mad. And it's about trying to get rid of the book, and I lost my. Something happened. My copy, and it vanished, and I had to go and find another one. Which, if you've read this, is quite strange. But it's this bit at the beginning. I love it. It's Camilla. You sir should unmask. The stranger says, "Indeed." And Camilla says, "Indeed, it's time. We have all laid aside disguise, but you." The stranger says, "I wear no mask." I'm terrified. Aside, no mask, no mask. The King in Yellow is fascinating. So Robert W. Chambers, anybody, good read. Not take you long to read that, by the way. That's the delight of a succinct writer, I suppose. I'll put that there. God, I love talking about books. What else have we got? I don't know. They're not exactly in alphabetical order here. What have we got there? That's old A. Van Vogt's always good for a bit of a read. Slam. We're going back a bit. What have we got down here? Canticle for Leibowitz. If anybody hasn't read it, I hope to do a video on it soon. Is again science fiction. That's the term I use. Royalty. Recently, I suppose Ursula Le Guin. Anything by her. Stanisław Lem. You probably all know Solaris. I've got up here the Siberiad is oh yeah. Here, look at this. I love this book. I have absolutely love this book. There's a Google Doodle. If you can see it for Stanisław Lem, and it's all to do with this. If you haven't read this, this is this is incredible. Most cosmic civilizations long for things in the depth of their souls that they would never open and admit to. This is kind of a there's 2 kind of inventor guys, isn't it? Clopergius and Troll, isn't that their names? Let me see. Troll, sorry. If you haven't seen the Google Doodle, go and play with it. It's great fun. This is a master. I love this, and it's great that it's one of these books that you can give to kids to engage in. And all and of course, get get a good copy with the author's own illustrations and so on. Wonderful. But yeah, Stanisław Lem, another one up there is the Immortal Legends, which I haven't got around to reading. Of course, there's a whole pile of Heinlein up here. I don't think you can go too wrong with Heinlein. His writing tends to, how do I put it, about 2/3 maybe the way through his bigger books, it tends to go a wee bit, and as long as you push through it, his writing's pretty good. I had to buy myself a copy of Strange Land. I've got one here for you that might be useful. Now, a lot of people have heard of this, but they don't know that there's more to it. The Forever War by Joe Haldeman, highly influential, very good, very interesting, fascinating military science fiction. But how do I put this? There's 2 more books. There's Forever Free and Forever Peace. What's really worth doing is getting that. So that's the Peace and War, the omnibus edition. This is the Forever War. Forever War is the first book of this. So for those who know this book, it's pretty famous. And the Forever War, I suppose, was written reflecting the author's experiences in Vietnam. My understanding is he did 3 tours, and it kind of reflects the separation of these people from society, if you like. And the other books, the Forever Peace, etc., the Forever Free, take that and run with it, actually, and it's interesting. And as much as I had read that, one day I saw that in the shop and went, what? And sure enough, there were 2 more books. And excellent, really good stuff. But if you're not really into pursuing the whole thing, it's not everybody's cup of tea, maybe. But the first book is excellent science fiction, Let me just plonk them up here again. Otherwise, my office will be a real mess. Harlan Ellison, of course. There's a lot of Harlan Ellison's Dangerous Vision stuff. That's more compilations of other people him actings. What have we got? Let me see. I've got a couple of books that I haven't read yet myself, and so I can't really recommend them. But I've picked them up because of their unusualness, if you like, or because I've not heard of them. And I try to find science fiction writers who are from other cultures, really, or countries around the world that I haven't read stuff from, particularly coming from a country that really doesn't produce much science fiction, virtually none. Northern Ireland doesn't. We do good horror, we do good fantasy authors, but we don't do sci-fi. But they're called, so these are the 3, Penguin's brought out a bunch of these, Penguin science fiction. The Dimension of Miracles by Robert Sheckley, The Hair Carpet Weavers by Andreas Eschbach, and Trafalgar by Angelika Gorodischer are 3, and they're considered classics. I've not heard of them, not read them before, and I'm looking forward to getting at them. And they're all quite short books by the looks of it. The Mote in God's Eye is a good one. Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. The Glass Bead Game by Herman Hesse. Not everybody's cup of tea, but that's Nobel Prize winning science fiction. Oh, I'm going to stop talking for a second, come up for air. Let me catch up with your comments here. Suicide Booths is the first story from 1890. Connor, that's exactly it. I'm wow, I remember reading that. Haster says Ryan Scar, Spawn of Yog Sotha. Great stuff, Doc. Lemon's amazing. What about Everywhere at the End of Time? Everywhere at the End of Time is a harrowing listen. Hang on. Hang on. Everywhere at the End of Time is the 11th and final recording by The Caretaker, an alias of English electronic musician Leland Kirby. Is that what we're talking about? is a harrowing listen. I'm going to bookmark this. Let's see. Released between 2016 and 2019, its 6 studio albums used degrading loops of sampled ballroom music to portray the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Wow. That's interesting. Inspired by the success of An Empty Bliss Beyond the World, Kirby produced Everywhere as his final major work under the alias. The albums were produced in Krakow and released over 6-month periods to give a sense of time passing, with abstract album covers by friend Ivan Seal. The series drew comparisons to the works of composer William Basinski and electronic musician Burial, while the later stages were influenced by avant-gardist composer John Cage. That's interesting. Counted by noise. I've heard. I think, and when you get a sense of that, I've heard a few things like that. Is it? I don't know. Is it musical or is it cacophonous or something? It's supposed to sound like dementia. Yeah. I don't know. We were talking about that. My wife and we were saying the other day that if I get dementia, wouldn't be able to tell the difference really. I think. After the spawn of Yox. Okay, so let's see. Lem's amazing. He is. What about? So no, that's something new for me as well, guys. Thank you very much, Ryan and Connor. These books are all golden. Back in the days when War and Peace was written by Leo Tolstoy. Well, there's 1888, for example, for isn't it for Flatland? Dimensional theory and stuff. That some people really are, ahead of their time, or it's not necessarily that they're ahead of the time, but they can bring an explanation or an idea to the public awareness. But I float between science fiction, the occasional fantasy book, and really my head's, as you know, is generally buried in the ancient world somewhere. We've quite a few interesting archaeological finds and so on recently. I was looking also in terms. Anybody seen the thing about the crabs in Rome that live in the sewers that have evolved there? That's quite interesting. But they've just found Nero's theatre in Rome. And I think we found a mausoleum in London recently. Quite a lot of archaeological finds and stuff. Yes. Somebody. Okay, here we go. Bob Shaw and James White are both celebrated science fiction writers from Northern Ireland, though I have not read them yet. I am well aware of them, Connor. And they're both gone. James White lived locally to me, and I very, very nearly did my PhD on him. Now, James White in particular is of interest. And Bob Shaw, I've got a book of Bob Shaw's here. Only enough. I've got a lot of these. A friend gave me a whole bunch of these. There we go, which I haven't got around to reading. It's Ship of Strangers. I've got a whole bunch of these here. Man Plus by Frederick Paul, which I have read. Anyone by James Blish. A few things there. I've got stuff that I can't wait to get ready. But yes, we did have two science fiction writers at the time of, I suppose, our problem with civil rights. Civil rights never happened in Northern Ireland. And they're gone, but that's it. And they're particularly, I suppose, it's interesting how much, I suppose that people would say that the troubles in Northern Ireland started at a certain point. They're deeply wrong. The nonsense has been here a long time. But in particular, I think, as James White's work is it what do you call it now? Where are you, James? Hang on. Goodness, it's hard to find things in here sometimes. James White is the right. What's the name of it? It's the Sector, the Hospital series in space. Is what he's most noted for. Not one of them. What I'd love to do is get a collection of these. Yes, he was. Right. Oi. Sorry. James White. There we are. Died in 1999. Northern Irish author of science fiction novels. Born in Belfast, etc., etc. Yeah, there's some stuff around here locally to do with him. The Sector General series. That's it. There are 12 of them, and in particular, I suppose, with being from Northern Ireland. So, if you see on his Wikipedia page, it says he died in Port Stewart. That's just round the corner from me. And somebody offered to sort of put me in touch with some of his family when I was starting my PhD, because I wasn't quite sure about, well, when I was trying to come up with my thesis title, etc., and what to do it on. So he's part of just, but he's a Belfast man. There you go. And in particular, I suppose that it's got a lot to do with there's a classification system for alien life in it that's particularly interesting. But they're pacifistic science fiction, and it's thank God for a pacifist from Northern Ireland. So yeah, I've always been planning to do a video on the two of them, but we don't have any now, really, I suppose. And it is that it's Northern Ireland's not a country that looks to the future. It's embedded. It's what I like to call retarded atavism. Its head is firmly buried in the past, where people wish to be like their grandfathers. It's such a strange backward country, this. Have you read The Nightland or Hospital Station? I have not. I must read the book of this. I have preached. But yes, Bob Shaw. I think Bob worked at Harland and Wolff, I think, didn't he? So they're yeah, we did have a couple, but we don't produce science fiction writers. We do horror and stuff like that, and I've always thought it's particularly sad because Ireland, Northern Ireland, we do have a real great literary history here. It just doesn't include science fiction much. There you go, preach. No, it's pacifistic science fiction. It's a good thing, especially from someone. Ultimately, his background must have, living in this country would affect you that way, I suppose. But yeah, let me see. Who else have we got? Well, of course, we've been chatting with a few of you online with the comments there. We were talking about Michael Moorcock there earlier, The Time Dweller. I was chatting about that book that ended up in the sea. But goodness, there's so many. And I think if you go with your staple of sci-fi authors, if you know what I mean, there's the ones, the great ones that we all know: Arthur C. Clarke, Frank Herbert, Robert Heinlein, and Asimov. Anything that you haven't read by them is usually worth reading, I would say. Well, I'll not go the same way. There's books by Frank Herbert, like The Green Brain. It's kind of a certain time, I think. But I suppose it's interesting. Northern Ireland is a small country, and it's been quite so to get books and comic books. I've talked about how hard it was to get certain types of comic books here. So I suppose my initial reading education, lots of stuff that I wouldn't have mind reading, but particularly a lot of American authors that we just wouldn't have got their stuff. You wouldn't have seen it on a bookshelf. You wouldn't have seen it in a library here. And I can tell you who they are, to be honest with you. People like Poul Anderson, guys like Bob Shaw and James White, I suppose. Who else have we got? James Blish, nothing by him over here. Again, it's all different now, Yevgeny Zamyatin's Wheeze there. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, if anybody hasn't read it, is an extremely important novel. I think it's a very personal novel. It's very good. H.G. Wells is always good. We've got Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels. But yeah, I don't know. And if you're ever into it, you can take your head to the ancient world and have a go at some Lucian if you like. But there's so much science fiction, isn't there? But I don't know. And it's great that you guys are mentioning stuff that I don't know. And this is the problem for me, I suppose. I used to be very well informed on this kind of stuff, and then the year sort of 2009, my life went upside down, and that was it. I really just sort of stopped doing everything and had to focus on looking after people and things. We is great. The city. I'm in Northern Ireland. There says Connor. I hope more sci-fi turns up here. Well, Connor, it's interesting that you're saying that, because I'm thinking I'm taking a run up to the Comic-Con thing there, and in September I was hoping to maybe get a wee table, but occasionally I do see people up there, and I wouldn't mind trying to connect up with some of these people, because if that's what they're doing. But we see some people trying to self-publish up at these conventions, and they're fantasy, horror, sci-fi people, and they're local, trying to push their books occasionally. And I haven't been up in a wee while, but hang on, I'm going to back up. But yeah, it would be nice to see. I don't know. Something's got to happen to this society sooner or later. But we need to look to the future, and we do have good writers here. One of the guys who, well, this is the thing. Our really good guys are these are 2000 AD people, aren't they? So it's not that they don't do science fiction, but they're comic book people. What was I remember actually the first time I saw Murphyville in the world of Judge Dredd. Let me see. I'm trying to remember who's the author of those. Judge Joyce and all that. It really takes the Irish judges, and for goodness sake, you try to look at something and read something on the internet these days, and I'm being bombarded by adverts. They're just trying to find an author's name. Hang on. Garth Ennis, that's it. Sorry, I don't need to get there eventually. It's my memory, folks. Garth Ennis is the person I'm thinking of. Northern Irish American. He's headed off, hasn't he? All our talent buggers off. There you go. So yes, the preacher, isn't he the preacher? Preacher, the boys, etc., etc., and of course Judge Dredd. 2000 AD people. Very interesting to have a wee quick look at the book on Judge Dredd that's come out, looking at policing in Britain, and of course it's used the word Britain, and the author has done it. I'm reading the first few pages, but I'm not going to touch Northern Ireland about this, which actually completely invalidates his entire work, because most of those bad policing developments that ended up into the British police force came from Northern Ireland. Yes, indeed. I quite like when Irish pies are smiling. Pies is the Judge Dredd story I really liked. Was it Sod's disease or something? There you go, Connor. Let's see. The city underground or more of the tunnels. What's that? The city. Me is great. Oh, hang on. I've got to back up a wee bit, folks. I think I've missed. There we go. Having been in the Lightland Hospital Station, must preach. Speaking of archaeology, have you heard? Right. Oh, there we go. K. Mackley in Turkey. Let's have a look. Underground cities. I haven't. Hang on. Anagop. I don't know it by that name. I've not heard it. Let's have a look. Contained the city of Kemet and Center. First opened to tourists in 1964. About 19 kilometers from Nevşehir. Ancient name was Anagop. Caves must have been first built in the soft volcanic rock by the Phrygians and Indo-European people in the 8th century BC, according to the Turkish Department of Culture. Roman times replaced with the Greek. Yes, blah, 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 blah. Underground. So it's Petra, isn't it? Yeah, there's some nice photos there. Must have a wee nosy. Archaeology is always interesting to me, simply for the fact that if anyone's not familiar with this idea, that the past is fluid. Whenever we find something new, it changes our understanding and perception of that past, changes our knowledge. Just because we thought we knew something, suddenly something else turns up, So I know what you're talking about, Connor. Yes. We is great the city. Oh, hang on. City underground or more of the tunnels. Did you have a question about it, Ryan, or something? But yeah, it's interesting. Is it new archaeological things or something? Oh, here, maybe I should catch up with the comments, but I'll make a wee cigarette here. I remember came actually now. The boys made me think of someone living in the aftermath of greater forces, quite Northern Ireland. Yeah. There's something about the main character, and I know he's not meant to be Northern Irish, but he sounds very Billy Butcher, isn't it? It's a very Northern Irish kind of name. I enjoyed The Boys. I have not read the comics, etc., but I've been enjoying the TV series. I think it's yeah, it's quite interesting. It's funny. It's just I've been feeling particularly sorry for all the marine animals. It's a good laugh, isn't it? But it's a bit much sometimes, Just I don't know. But it gets you there, I think. But you see that I don't know, 2000 AD for years was a bit much. As much as a comic book initially for children, it grew up, and so its readership grew up with it, and there became a level of outrageous violence that works with humor very well. That was in that kind of thing, Connor, the poor dolphin, but it's part and parcel of Judge Dredd, and when you see stuff like that, sometimes I remember watching RoboCop 3. And there was a particular thing in it, and I just went, "That's as somebody dies in a particular way," and I just went bang out of Judge Dredd. And then I realised when I went to have a look at it, let me just quickly check that the writers on it were from 2000 AD. So the 2000 AD people have really permeated into the let's see, RoboCop. Wow. Oh, that's Frank Miller, isn't it? Hang on. I may be wrong. I thought there was that kind of humor, and I thought there was a 2000 AD writer involved in it. Story by Frank Miller, Fred Decker. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it was RoboCop 2. No, maybe I'm completely wrong, and I'm not remembering correctly. Maybe it's RoboCop 2. Frank Miller again, Holland Green. No, I'm thinking of something else. Sorry. But it was just something. It was some film I saw, and there was just a moment of amusing violence in it. That was a kind of an aside, and I just went. And whenever I looked at the end of the film, it was a 2. I can't remember what it was now, but I was convinced it was RoboCop 3 for some reason. Clearly not. Kim Ackley is eerie and outlive mankind. That's the man. That's true, says Ryan. I heard a comment in a book, Imagining Life After Mankind Disappeared. Am I thinking on the wrong thing then? Or hang on. Life After Mankind Disappears. I take it it's an abandoned. It's not inhabited. Plenty of cities like that, I suppose. Only a fraction of the complex is open to the public. I would have to read into it a bit more. Wonder when it was abandoned. Let's see. Used for protection from Muslim Arab raids during the 4th centuries of the Arab-Byzantine Wars, the city was connected with the Derinku underground city through miles of tunnels. Some artifacts are discovered in these underground settlements belonging to the Middle Byzantine period between the 5th and 10th centuries AD. These cities continued to be used by Christian to have protection from Mongolian incursions of Timur, into the 14th century. After the region fell to the Seljuk Turks of Persia, the cities were used as refuges from the Turkish Muslim rulers, and as late as the 20th century, the inhabitants, now called Eastern Romans, by their Ottoman Turkish rulers, were still using the underground cities to escape periodic waves of Ottoman persecution. Richard McGilvray Dawkins, a Cambridge linguist who conducted research on the Cappadocian Greeks in the area, recorded in 1909 the news came. Let me see. Sorry. My mouse doesn't work right. When the news came of the recent massacres at Adana, a great part of the population actually took refuge in these underground chambers, and for some nights did not venture to sleep above ground. When the Christians, Roman inhabitants of the region, were expelled in 1923, in the population exchange between Greece and Turkey, the tunnels were abandoned. There you go. So people living there as late as the 20s, 100 years ago. I think places like that are fascinating. In terms of where we're going on the world, we might need to start moving people underground. Poor dolphin, yeah. Was it? There was another marine animal got it in another episode. Was it I don't know, a whale or something? I have recently acquired Progs 100 to 500 2000 AD, 12,000 plus pages. Excellent. I love Nemesis and Robo Hunter, but I meant to read Alan Moore's work. The World Without Us was the book. All right, thank you. I've read a little Nemesis and Dread online. Really enjoyed it. It's all quality stuff. Nemesis the Warlock's really good. I can tell you something. I have a few opinions about 2000 AD at the minute, but they've hit. I think a wee while back. My son bought me. Let me see. Can we find them here? I've got this giant printer in the way. Hang on. My son recently bought me a couple of the. Hang on. Where are we? A couple of the more recent kind of collected Judge Dreads. There we go. Hang on. Hang on here. Now, I suppose it's interesting to see that 2000 AD really is pushing nostalgia, isn't it? They're trying to get everybody into their old stories. They're pushing things like Nemesis, etc., and reissuing them in expensive. And that's a sign that they've run out of ideas, really. Now, my son bought me these two recently. The Complete Case Files 35, and then the East Meg, let's see, The Day of Chaos, the 4th edition. So these actually took me back to the time when I stopped reading 2000 AD. And as much as it was a lovely present, whenever I read through these, I realized why I'd had enough. And it was a new generation of writers. And I thought that they were being pretty disrespectful to some stuff. Particularly, it's a bit like you see this stuff today. Here's a beloved character. Do something with it. I'll just kill him, and I'll do it in a way. And the story that ruined it for me was Love Story 3. And that's it. I went, that's it. I've had enough of this nonsense. I'm a person who's stuck with 2000 AD for a long, long time, most of my adult life. But it was that kind of thing, and it was stuff that was jarring with me, and I was not enjoying it. And I've actually pushed through every time that 2000 AD has changed its writers. It's the old people go to America. Generally, what's happened, and they bring in new talent. You give them long enough, and it stuck. It worked well. But I don't know when this was, but that's when I stopped reading it. And so Nemesis the Warlock is fantastic. I've got the first 4 here of the original Titan books. And of course, you can't beat Judge Dredd. The Cursed Earth, the Judge Child Quest is a good one. The Mega City Addicts, the old 2000 AD stuff's brilliant. And I do think that the new people have a real hard time competing with it, But Nemesis the Warlock's fantastic. I love Nemesis the Warlock, and it bleeds into the ABC Warriors. A lot of it, particularly, was it has different kind of styles to it, but Brian Talbot was involved with that for a wee while. It went a bit steampunk. It was very, very good, with the Gothic Empire and all of this stuff. And then, of course, I think we got Simon Bisley coming in as the artist, and the ABC Warriors kind of returned at that point and took off because we'd left them behind a long time. My old band was called Happy Shrapnel, after one of the original ABC Warriors who we were always told just died on a bar brawl on Mars. And when do you think the end of 2000 AD came? It's still going, but here, hang on. Sorry, I've got to jump back a bit. The Day of Chaos about the Block Wars. Hang on. Oh, is that one there? No, it actually goes on after this. It's just it's leading up to someone trying to assassinate Judge Dredd, I think. But I didn't enjoy. I read them. They were a lovely gift. It said, but I was saying to my son that they reminded me why I stopped reading 2080. The other reason was it got too dear, and I've been a poor student most of my life. One of those eternal students, and I've always worked and had a wee job to keep me. But that comic used to be 8p a week, you know. But there was one. There's a couple of there's. I will do this one day, guys. I'm going to do my top 10 Judge Dredd stories and my top 10 2080 stories of all time. But I can tell you, if you one of them's called Love Story, one of them's called It Still Pays. It Pays to Be Mental. So there's Love Story 1, 2, and then the story that killed Love Story 3. I just hated it. And I wanted to reach through time and smack the person that wrote it. And it was also drawn by the art, particularly that they brought the same artist back as Ian Gibson, I think. So it was a very funny story, and everything about it, the way it was written, was just wrong, and it had Dredd just killing this woman. This is Love Story is about the woman that has Dredd syndrome, that she falls in love with her. It's very, very funny. And I didn't want to. I actually thought once I read that they're going to do this to It Pays to Be Mental, because there's a sequel to it. It Still Pays to Be Mental, and I just I have It Pays to Be Mental one else. It's brilliant. It's so funny. A great story that breaks the fourth wall. Deals with mental health and Mega City One in such a funny way. I don't know. When do I think the end of it? It's still going, but it's about. I think anything like this over a long period of time. We're into a new century. Things don't last, and things that we love. We really want to hang on to them. We want them to keep going, but sooner or later it's going to fizzle out. How old is Judge Dredd now? And of course the old idea is, they get to the point where we can clone Judge Dredd because he's a clone and this kind of thing. And so the older Judge Dredd's a much wiser Judge Dredd, if you like. But probably one of my all-time favorite Judge Dredd stories is the Bonnie Crickle case, which is very sad, and it leads to all sorts of things. But the tight boots story, this kind of thing. But it's a moment. It's the story that changes. The moment Judge Dredd changes is the Bonnie Crickle story. And that's where he ceases to become a totalitarian fascist cop, and actually, he's still Judge Dredd, he's still the law, but he's become human at that point, I think, because initially early in Judge Dredd is a human. He's not a superhero, but he is almost superhuman, and he's a great character. He's a very well written character. And it's maybe that the 2080s is suffering from the same thing that TV and cinema is suffering from. It's a generation of writers. They don't know how to write. And maybe that's the thing to do with youth. I don't know. Long time. I wrote a whole bunch of stories when I finished my first degree. I wrote a whole bunch of stories, and I thought some of my ideas were quite interesting, but I realized that I was not a good writer. And the other thing I realized at the time was that I'm a very good writer now, and I wear different writing hats, if that makes sense. So I have a different writing hat if I'm being a classicist. I have a different writing hat if I'm being a computer scientist. Different hat for being a literary person, this kind of thing. And then I also have my fictional writing, But I realized that at that time I needed a more worldly life experience. Learn more words, become this kind of thing. I wasn't ready to be a good writer. I didn't want to write rubbish, though I was writing some stuff, And funny enough, I asked my wife the other day, because I'd picked up I did something with one of my students a wee while back, one of my English students. What I did was I took one of the stories that I wrote when I was about 21, and I decided to rewrite the first paragraph of it and see how I would do it. We were sort of trying to see how we can get her to help the student do a wee bit of creative writing, if you see what I mean. And I was reading it to my wife the other night, because it's a science fiction story I wrote called The Seven Suits of Erskine Lee. And I've always thought about writing it. I wanted to rewrite it. And if I'm going to write a novel, that's probably going to be it. But I read the first, and I had to ask my wife, would you read it? Would you buy a book from me if this was my style? And I don't honestly. She thought the writing was good, but the question is, would you read it? He does age in real time, says Connor. He does. Your June videos were sublime. Thank you very much, Connor. Um, mm. But I love 2000 AD, but it's steampunk originated in that story, I believe. What's that story you're talking about there, Connor? I'm not sure. Block War's a great story. I remember Don Uggy Yapolino and the Ape Gang. I don't know if you remember them. They were good. But yeah, old golden age, whatever you call it, up to about episode 1000 is great. I think the Gothic Kingdom and Nemesis. Yeah, steampunk original story. No, goes steampunk's way back. But you're looking at the right person. Let me see. Hang on. The one that a lot of people like to think of is the Adventures of Luther Arkwright, which is very good, and I no longer have a copy. I think that I'm pretty sure that there's more Luther Arkwright than I have read now. That's something I must replace. That's a book that I lost. Hateful, these and great books. Limited series comic book draw. Let me see, maybe there isn't more. The story is adult and tone with many mythological, historical, and political references and a little explicit sex. English writer Warren Arkwright, probably the single most influential graphic novel to have come out of Britain to date. Probably Anglophone comics' single most important experimental work. When was it first released? Let's see. I think that it's 87. Steampunk's about before that. Moorcock's let's see here. What does it say here? Luther Arkwright's Genesis owns something to the influence of Michael Moorcock's Jerry Cornelius stories, though Moorcock and Talbot agree that similarities between the characters are limited. A bit more Oswald Bastable, I thought. But that would be steampunk. Let's have a look. What? I do like steampunk, but I don't read much of it. I just prefer I actually just like Victorian science fiction. Let's see. So that's probably where you'd go. See, I suppose it's like a reverse name, isn't it? But steampunk containing alternate histories. But I'm not sure what would be the first. But I would be looking at the Victorian writers, maybe. Several modern works of art and fiction significant to the development of the genre were produced before the genre hasn't had a name. That's the same as science fiction. Titus Alone is widely regarded by scholars as the first novel in the genre proper, while others point to Michael Moorcock's 1971 novel, The Warlord of the Air. That's where I was going. Let's see. Hang on. Goodness, I really must get my sci-fi brain on sometime. There we go. Moorcock's Warlord of the Air. That's the note collected as the Nomad of the Time Streams. This is the Warlord of the Air, the Land Leviathan, and the Steel Tsar. There we go. The astonishing adventures of Captain Oswald Bastable, ex-53rd Lancers and Special Air Police. How with grit and integrity, one brave English airshipman struggled for sanity in a world turned upside down, threatened by an infamous international anarchist conspiracy to destroy the Pax Britannica, maintained by our mighty aerial cruisers. So there you go. But Adventures of Luther Arkwright, if you like comic books, grab it. It's a great read. I remember particularly that reading the book like this, if you see what I mean. Reading away, and then you turn a page, and the book, you have to start doing this. And the book, yes, it was really, it was really interesting. It's a pleasure to read. If anyone's not read it, Our Adventures of Luther Arkwright's really good. Let me just check, because I had a wee look at this a wee while back, and I thought somebody had done something more to it. It's pretty much written and drawn. It's a complete, let's see. Right. I don't know when I read this. Yeah, the entire series called. Yeah, there is more. There is more. By the looks of it. The Adventures of Luther Arkwright, Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3 now. Um, let's see. Another media. There's an audio adaptation from Big Finish Productions starring David Tennant. Oh, cast near the time of the series release as the 10th Doctor and Doctor Who, and Paul Darrow, who was Avon. Oh, that might be good. Paul Darrow's great, wasn't he? Avon and Blake Seven. What a great character. Robert Lockwood Jr. So there's a Big Finish Productions version of it. They do a lot of 2080, that kind of stuff, don't they? Yeah, 2006 it was announced that Bender Spink would be creating a live action film, but it collapsed in 2010. So there we go. But Luther Arkwright, yeah, I think steampunk really is in the Victorian era, what I would call the fin de siècle science fiction, but it wouldn't have had that name, you know. Connor, it used to be 12p, it was 8p when I started reading. Connor, it pays to be middle one. I have it. It's a great read. I love it. If anyone hasn't read It Pays to Be Metal, it's a very funny story. The Gothic Kingdom and Nemesis. But I loved that treatment in particular. And of course, that's what brings the ABC Warriors back, and they're looking really, you know, it was a wonderful thing. Actually, it's book 4 of Nemesis, I believe. And Pat Mills lost interest. Yeah, I was an expert, to be honest. Don't be worried about it, Connor. I look at it. It sounds a bit like Mobius. Yeah. I genuinely wish I still had it. I'd love to show it to you. It's a good read, and if steampunk's your thing, not bad at all. Mark Hodder's books were very good, and I thought the only other kind of steampunk that I'd read in recent times, I believe, is that it? It was an Alistair Reynolds book. That's it. Yeah. Would you call it steampunk? I would, to a degree. Let's see. Terminal World is a snarling, drooling, crazy-eyed mongrel of a book, equal parts steampunk, western, planetary romance, and far future sci-fi. I haven't read it in a long time, but I usually enjoy his books. That's a steampunky book. Not a big fan of the genre. There's only so much you can do with it, and I tend to prefer the actual Victorian fin de siècle stuff. It's really good, you know, which is what they're all trying to imitate, you know. Hammerstein, one of my favorite characters. As a little kid, I'm surprised I don't have a Hammerstein and Rojaws tattoo, but 2080, when it was, you know, in its heyday, they used to have Hammerstein and Rojaws as laughing. You know, they were very much robots designed to appeal to little kids. And Hammerstein is actually a fascinating character. Old Red Eyes himself, the first robot to murder a human officer. And if anybody hasn't read the original, the ABC Warriors are great. Think of just the Magnificent Seven on Mars. With 7 robots that are atomic, bacterial, and chemical warfare proof, which was the kind of interesting thing. It never quite made sense how Happy Shrapnel died in a barroom brawl. If you see, but Hammerstein's a fantastic character. You'll see a robot that looks like Hammerstein in the really bad Judge Dredd movie with Sylvester Stallone. But wouldn't the ABC Warriors be a great film? But it's not really my thing. Whatever I see it, I think of Nemesis. I love Nemesis. I read them again. I read them again. Read them as a kid, says Connor, but I will read them again soon. Yeah, they're you know something, the artists in them are exquisite. And let's get one on out here just to show you, because we do sometimes British comics like this are off the radar, I suppose. Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to end up wrecking everything. Let's just grab them from down here. Let me see. Where do we go? There's one. There's 2. Oh, I've not got them organized. Let me see. There's 4. There we go. I had them between books. That's quite weird. Right, let me shove this thing back in here. Still trying to get this house sorted. But, of course, there we go. Let's get book 1, Nemesis the Warlock. This is Pat Mills and of course Kevin O'Neill. The first 2 stories are legendary. They're called Terror Tube. Is it called the Comic Rock Terror Tube? Goodness, I actually used a bit of this for a minute. But there's Kenny Everett as the DJ. The artwork in this is incredible, and the feeling that you get when the look and feel, particularly with Kevin O'Neill's art. I think it really. I wonder, can I just get an image that would say it all? They're exquisitely beautiful, and they feel evil. If you see, there's something almost evil about it, and the whole idea, of course, is that Nemesis is the alien, is the evil thing, and of course, it's the humanity is the bad guy, and the humanity is completely evil. I don't know if you can see that kind of thing there. But it's exquisite, and stylistically, up until we get Brian Talbot coming into it, that's the look and feel of Nemesis. So yeah, Brian Talbot arrived at book 3, wasn't he? Let me just check. And there's book 2. And the universe in particular, the aliens are it's exquisite. This is the sort of thing that American comic book people should never ever color. If you've colorized this, I don't like you. It needs to stay black and white. Looking at the Brian Talbot stuff there, I mean, there you go. Nemesis, Torquemada, and Purity Brown, the Thoth, Nemesis' son, but the return of the ABC Warriors in this, and it really does open up into. And this is the Brian Talbot influence on it, it's incredible. And the ABC Warriors become a real part of it. And of course, then you realize that the way they run it is that Deadlock and Nemesis are sort of the same person, aren't they? So Deadlock's the kind of weird, mysterious guy. Just to show you guys very quickly, let me see. Not that I do this too often, but just for a bit of a giggle. Which arm are we on? Hang on. There we go. That is the Simon Bisley one, and that's Mongrel chasing Mechquake with his other body. We've got a Strontium Dog badge up there too, folks. Torquemada was voted the best comic villain for so many years in a row by the Eagle Awards. He is a great and very funny villain. My favorite line, I think, is from the first book, is "I will meditate on your deaths sometime." Just that dismissive. The designs of the ABC Warriors in that movie was way better than it deserved. I mean, it was the design of Hammerstein. They just took off that part of his head, really, and otherwise he looked identical. Of course, Hammerstein has got 2 different heads. But one is very child friendly with just like a sort of visor thing here. But they're the old story that they appeared in was Robusters, of course, and they were great. And Torquemada just looks evil, and he is evil. He's and to take a historical figure like Thomas the Torquemada and take his whole family and turn them into this bunch of loons, they're exceptionally evil, very fun. I think such great art in those stories, absolutely. They're fantastic, But yeah, I suppose we're always recommending books, some good comics, graphic novels, etc. as well, But have we got anything of that's particularly outstanding down there? I don't know. I've got a few old Titan books, and I said I gave away a lot of my comics recently to a student. But I've got the VCs down there, and yeah, some ABC Warrior stuff. Young Death, Boyhood of a Super Fiend's a good read. So I could recommend books to you guys all day, But there. But listen, folks, I'll tell you what, I popped on for a bit of crack, and it's been good fun. Bit of crack, as we say in Northern Ireland. Better just to clarify that. Connor will know what I mean. It's not crack cocaine. Crack is a bit of a laugh, a bit of a giggle, if you know what I mean. Well, how's the crack, as they say? I'm going to spell it for you, just so That's the crack there. If you're ever in Ireland, people say, "How's the crack?" It means, "How you doing? How's your life? Is everything okay? What have you heard? What's the fun?" It means so many different things. No, thank you very much, Connor. Thanks very much. I'll crack together, all together. That's it. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining me tonight for a bit of a whimsy chat. We did have a wee bit of a natter about Cixin Liu, and then we got on to all other sorts of things. But I'll definitely have to make some wee notes at some point on Cixin Liu's books. Gather my thought. There's just so much to talk about. But very, very impressive. As for all of that other stuff, the stuff that I keep up here, generally, these two shelves are what I consider sci-fi royalty. The big stuff, it's just kind of, But for any, we've talked about the Stragatsky brothers, Cixin Liu, all sorts of stuff there. Philip Jose Furman. We went all over the place tonight, But it's all good stuff, And just Titus Alone there, that's the third book. We were talking about books that were considered steampunk. That's the third book in the Gormenghast trilogy. And if anybody's never read that, start with Titus Crone. It's a good one too, But listen, folks, I could go at it all the time here. Looking forward to your thoughts on Remembrance of Earth's Past. Yeah, I really will have to put that together into some. It needs structure, doesn't it? There's too much to talk about. Bojack says, "I'll be real watching this episode for all the great recommendations." No problem. I must at some point. I don't know. There's that much here, and sometimes as I said, I've lost an awful lot of books, or that were destroyed, and half the times I wonder where have I still got them. And I often find out that I don't. It's quite sad. But that, as I said, somebody mentioned Lord Dunstan. I was going to get the book and just recommend it, and realised that it was missing, and I was really sad about it, so I ordered it. It only arrived the other day. I'm at page 60. I'm tearing through it. But exquisite prose. So just if anybody likes a wee bit of old high fantasy, that's a good one at the minute. I'm enjoying. But listen, folks, it's getting a wee bit late. I'm a bit knackered. I've had a bit of a day or two. So we'll be popping on tomorrow with our June. Is it? That's today. Yes, with our June book club. Tonight, sorry, at 9 o'clock, and with a really important chapter. Lots to talk about. It's one of the most important chapters, I think, in June, and we're heading towards the conclusion. So we'll see you later on this evening, folks, at 9 o'clock if you want to join me. And in the meantime, look after yourselves, take care, and thank you all so much for your questions, your comments, and your recommendations as well. You've put a few things on my radar. I just wish I had the time to get to them all, But take it easy, folks. Thank you very much. And I'll say good night. Look after yourselves no matter where you are, and all the best. Take care. Bye-bye. See you later.